you had the urban cowboy boom. 80, 81, everybody had a hat. Everybody had a hat. So much, in fact, that they ran out of material to make hats out of. And they were like, let's make hats out of denim. Let's make hats out of this. It didn't matter as long as you had something that looked like a cowboy hat. It ended almost as quickly as it started. The problem is when you are making that many hats, the quality of the hat goes down. You know, if you're making 10 hats and you're making 10,000 hats, those 10 hats are going to be a lot better than these 10,000 hats. So across the industry, the whole quality level of hats dropped dramatically. And so what do you have left after that boom? You have the cowboys. You're like, hey, I need a hat. I still need a hat. I'm still wearing a hat. And so you went from this, the poorest quality, to these hat companies. And a lot of them went out of business. But the hat companies that remained had to make a great hat to win back these cowboys and people that actually wear hats every day, because they were fed up with the quality that they were getting and they needed something nice. So across the board, every hat company said, hey, we got to get our act together, start making a better hat. So a lot of the hats from, I would say 82, 83 to 85 were absolutely amazing hats because of competition. "20 minutes ago. Shut the fuck up, start talking." Hi, I'm Jeff Biggars with Biggar Hats. And for over the past 25 years, I've dedicated my life to the art of hat making. I've made hats in the biggest production companies, and I've made hats at the custom level. I've been given many opportunities to make hats here in Texas and visited companies and factories around the world. And what that has given me is a unique view of the hat world that very few people get to see. As far as all the things I've seen and learned, I would say smaller than a handful of people in the entire world have ever been able to witness what I have. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the X game. Now, there are so many misconceptions, marketing strategies, mistruths, lies that will make you so confused about this whole hat game, and it drives some people crazy, and it should. It's very confusing, and it's very confusing for a reason. Through marketing, when you present this product as something greater than it is, not only are you going to sell it better, but you're going to make more profit. And you don't want to reveal what you're using in that hat.
How are people supposed to know what they're buying? How do they know what these different qualities mean across all of the different brands?
So the most common question I get is, what is an X? And if you don't know, it's a grade on the quality of the hat. And there's many variables that go into what you would call an X, including beaver percentage or quality of rabbit that's used in the hat, how it's made, where it's made, the amount of time that's put into it, the machines. Different people can make a different hat with the same body and come out with a different end result. And so everybody has their conception of what, hey, this is what my X is. And the problem is there's no government standard or anything like that for an X. Everybody can call an X what they want to. And of course, everybody is proud of their hats. And so they want to put the highest grade on those. And that's just not what the general public or even hat shapers or even hat makers are going to tell you that's what they believe. Over here you have the companies, and over here you have the end consumer, and they're on two different spectrums of what an X means. and that has changed over the years. When you go back, to when X's were initially developed and used in hats, because they weren't always used in hats, what I've been told is that the highest grade was the 10X, and 10X was 100% beaver, and 5X was 50%, 3X was 30%. We see a lot of hats today, old hats that come in, and they say 3X on them. And these are wonderful hats. And today's 3X most commonly is wool, not even rabbit. And so you're like, how is this 3X from way back then so much better than the 3X hats today? And the main reason is the content of the fur, what the quality of that fur is. They had a much better product right from the start. It's hard to replicate that kind of quality with a different starting point.
When did they start putting X's in wool, and why? Is that what changed the X scale?
Yeah, first time I saw X's in wools was in the 90s. Of course, I started doing hats in the 90s, so what I saw before that, I mean, when I worked in the 90s, I saw a lot of hats from the 80s. And just like now, we see a lot of hats from the teens. But that was a long time ago. It's hard to remember. I think the first time I saw X's in hats was 96 or 97 in the wool hats. And they were always 2X. The 3X hats were still rabbit. And they were decent hats, depending on who made them. But the wools were always 2X premium wool. And your 3X was rabbit. There was a 4X, 5X, 6, 7, and 8, which were all rabbit in the 90s and early 2000s. But over time, that 2X wool became 3X. Some people even put 4X on a wool. If you go down to Mexico, you might have a 100X wool. I've seen that before. So you can't go by what that X is. Whether it's a wool hat, whether it's 100X, whether it's 500X or 10,000X, you have to do your research and do your homework to see what that hat actually is. It's hard to take my word for it or this company's word for it on, hey, this is 100X, that means it's the greatest hat. No, it doesn't. You need to educate yourself on what a hat should be, what you need out of that hat, because different people have a different requirement for what a hat does for them. And they have a different mindset on, hey, this is the greatest hat I can buy. This guy might say, I want it a little softer. And this guy might say, I got to have it stiff. I got to have it tough. I'm Cowboy. I would say the general expectations today of what a great hat should be by the majority of, I'll say, working cowboys are three things, the trinity of hats, I'll say. So you have stiffness, how stiff it is, how durable it's going to be. You have how thin it is. And the reason behind that is the thinner it looks, the nicer it looks, dressier it looks. And the finish on the hat. The hats are sanded down, and the higher the quality hat, the more you can finish them, the softer it's going to be. The deal with that is, to do all three is extremely difficult. Almost everybody can do 2 out of 3. It's very easy to do 2 out of 3. But to do 3 out of 3, that's a much different ballgame. Not very many people can do that. And even the ones that can't do it every time. It's just impossible. It's like having a perfect body every time. And you're working with a natural product, that's just not going to happen every single time. If you want to really understand the X system, you got to know who the players in the game are. So I'll introduce you to the top major players. There's not very many. There's not very many people do this. And so when you have a different industry, there's hundreds or even thousands of people making this product. With hats, it's just not so many. And with bodies, it's even less. So the first person I'll let you know is FEPSA, and it's a company in Portugal. that makes felt hat bodies. The owner of FEPSA also owns Cortaderia, and Cortaderia is a fur factory company. The reason that's very important is because that fur factory supplies fur to FEPSA, which is the largest body manufacturer by far, but they also sell bodies to another hat body manufacturer in Tennessee, and that hat body manufacturer makes a lot of hats for the custom guys. They do a little for the production companies around, but the majority of their stuff is, I would say, custom from what I know about them.
It sounds like this one massive company has the market cornered.
I would say that FEPSA and Cortaderia mainly. I mean, I would say that the standards are set by FEPSA as far as, hey, this, this is what a quality body should be. But Cortaderia really runs a lot of that through their fur. Now, seeing the whole process, there are, it's just like with a hat. I get a hat body and I make it. If I get this hat body and this guy gets that hat body, exact same, it's going to be a totally different hat. It's the same with fur. And so when you sell that fur that Cortaderia is making to FEPSA, even though it's the same fur, it's going to be a much different hat body than what this company is making. And that's because of the process, the time, even though you start with the same product, you're going to end with a much different product. So
it's just these two companies making hat bodies.
So there's also a felt body manufacturer in Texas, and they pretty much exclusively make bodies for pretty much the largest Western hat maker in the world. And they have their fur suppliers. They have a couple or multiple ones from what I know. And they are a big part of the Western hat industry just because they supply that one company. They have a big impact. However, FEPSA and Cortaderia have even bigger impact than that.
So who's determining the X factor? Is it the body manufacturer or the hat manufacturer?
One of the biggest misconceptions is this X is this percentage of beaver. I've got a 20X, so it's 20%. And really nothing could be farther from the truth. So with FEPSA, they have an X system, and their X system pretty much, once you get to 10X, perfectly correlates with how much percentage that is, as Ricardo is about to explain to you. However, when a hat manufacturer gets that body, they can call it whatever they want. And so this 2X body can be a 10X hat.
Wait, a 2X from FEPSA is not a wool body?
2X is not a wool. So a hat company can take a 2X body from FEPSA, which is all rabbit. It's not wool. Because a hat manufacturer is what decides the final X on that. So FEPSA has a 2X felt body that's all rabbit, and a hat company, a hat making company, can call that a 5X or a 10X or whatever they want to call it. And that's about the most common translation of this X. You can put a 5X and make a 20X out of that, so forth, so on. What you'll see, I think nowadays is you have, 100X, 200X, 500X. And that was really what changed the game for me. In the late 90s, there was a hat manufacturer and they came out with this 200X. And everybody's like, wait, you can't have 200% beaver. So what is this, And they said, hey, it's 100X hat, it's 100%, but you get this solid gold buckle set. You get this handy dandy leather travel case, and we're going to sell it for $1,600. So the 90s $1,600 was a lot of money for a hat, a lot of money. But it's a 200X. Nobody's got 200X. And as hat sellers, we were okay with that. Okay, there's a justification there. That was the beginning to me of the downfall of the X's, even though it had already been sliding. But that was, even though it was in good faith, to me it was bucking the system.
The beginning of the end.
I think it was the beginning of the end, maybe, as far as integrity goes in hats. So that was late 90s, early 2000s. A different large manufacturer came out with another 200X. And as hat sellers, we're like, okay, what is this? Is it 1600 like that one? No, 700. Retails for 700. Wait a minute, that's less than half. Yeah, you're going to sell a lot of them. We're like, okay, but how can you do it for less than half? It's 100% Beaver. And they're like, no, it's only 40% Beaver. We're like, okay, 40%. They were like, yeah, and it comes with this gold buckle set, and it has a real diamond in it. A real diamond in that buckle set. It's very, very tiny, but it's a real diamond. We're like, okay, in a leather travel case? No, you don't get that. You get a hat with this buckle set. Well, if it's only 40%, how's it a 200X? And they were like, did you just hear me say real diamond? Yeah, it's got a real diamond. And we're like, okay. So we did sell a lot of those, dozens and dozens and dozens. But they reacted as a 40% Beaver hat and not a 100% Beaver hat. They were not tough. A lot of them really wouldn't hold their shape. People that were cowboying in these hats, that was a sure. To me, cowboys are the ones that actually, are the ones that rate the hats, because they wear them, they put them under the pressure and the distress, and these hats were just not holding up. But that was a very large company, so they set the standard with this 40% is 200X now. And so I worked at a custom hat maker at this time, and we used exclusively the Tennessee bodies. We also used, for the lower qualities, some Brazilian bodies, but for our 50X and 100X hat, which was our bread and butter, we used a company out in Tennessee. The man I worked for bought a large production company, and we got introduced to FEPSA hats. So we're making these custom hats that are 100% Beaver from Tennessee, and we called that 100X. And so when we got the bigger production company, they had a FEPSA, 100% pure Beaver. It was a more expensive body, and it's a different hat. So we were like, how are we going to differentiate this hat from this hat? And naturally, went up to 500X. And that to me is a good justification, because you have the 100X and the 500X, and they are very different hats. The 200X, I don't agree with, but you can't call this hat and this hat the same. So there was a need to say, hey, this is a better hat. And, just putting 100X on it was not enough.
Jeff, you've seen just about every corner of this industry, but tell us about your trip to Portugal to visit FEPSA, the world's largest body manufacturer. What did you learn there that most people, most hat buyers, and even some manufacturers don't even know?
In August of 2024, I had a chance to go to Portugal and visit Cortaderia and FEPSA. And as a hat maker who's been doing this for so long, it was just kind of life-changing for me, because I've seen videos of body making. I've talked to body makers, and it's no comparison to actually seeing this stuff firsthand. When you go there, I had all these expectations of these ancient machines because that's what's used here in the United States. Almost everything they use is over 100 years old. There was really no call or demand to make new stuff. So what do? You use the old stuff. And back then, hats were huge, hats were big, and you have these machines last 100 years because they were built to last by true engineers. And I always think how to explain that is your best minds always go to where the money is. And like today is computers or space or whatever. And back then, big money was hats. And so they needed machines to make millions of hats. And they hired engineers to build these machines. And fortunately, today we have those machines still in use. In my shop, I have quite a few equipment that's, well over 100 years. So when I visited Portugal, those were my expectations. And what I found was much different. They have 11 engineers full-time making hat body making equipment. And so you would see like this hybrid of a machine, 100-year-old machine, and then the other half of it was brand new. And it was quite fascinating to see that because not only was it this upgrade on the machine, it was much faster. And they could do things with these new machines that the new engineers created that I don't think they could have done back then. And so my general, what I took from Portugal is not only just the size of it. I mean, the fur body company has over 200 employees. FEPSA, the felt hat body manufacturer, they have over 400 employees. I didn't understand that scope of it. Both of the facilities are absolutely humongous. Took a full day to tour each one, and probably still didn't see everything, but I'll take you through that in my other videos so you can see everything. And that's never been done before at FEPSA. They've only had small clips. Ricardo was generous enough to allow us to film the whole process, and that's so great for you to see. It's never been seen before. I never saw it before. Been doing this a long time. I never saw it before. And until you see it, you just don't understand. So what I tell you about X's, you can believe me or you won't. Hope you do. But Ricardo is about to explain to you his X system. And Ricardo is the leading voice. What you take away from that is, it is what it is. What he says is what we go by. So I'm going to turn you over to Ricardo of FEPSA and Cortaderia, and he's going to explain to you his X system, what he puts in his hats, and he's going to talk about 2X's and 3X's and 5X's, and really listen to what he's saying on that. Even though you may think 2X, 3X, I would never jack with that. Trust me, a lot of people use these bodies for their entry-level hats, 7X, 10X. So you've seen these lower qualities, so really listen to actually what's in them, because just because this 2X is all rabbit and this 5X is all rabbit, they're very different hats. So without further ado, here's Ricardo. Okay, so we have different qualities of fur, obviously. Can you explain how that works here?
Well, we use different qualities of rabbit fur to make the rabbit fur qualities, of course. So up to 5x, there's only rabbit fur. So we have the 2x, 3x, 4x, and 5x. And then the higher qualities, the number of x's correspond to the beaver percentage. So for example, a 50x is 50% beaver, 100x is 100% beaver, and 10x is 10. The only exception is 6x, which is 5% beaver. So 6x is 5% beaver, but other than that, the other qualities are the number of x's correspond to the beaver percentage. And we have all different qualities from 10x up to 100x. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. We don't have a 90x, but we have 100x. And I don't know why we don't have 90x. Nobody asked for a 90x, but we have 100x. And then we have also beaver mink, which is a mix of beaver and mink. It has 10% mink and 90% beaver. And we have for Jeff Biggar, we have the silver belly, which is 100% belly from very special skins. Jeff Biggar, we have the silver belly, which is 100% belly from very special skins that are very light in color. They're silver color, a very rare type of beaver that so we extract only the fur from the belly, which is the best quality. So we call it silver belly, which is actually the fur from the belly from the very light, silver color beavers. Of course, majority of the beavers are brown or pale. Some are pale, but very rarely we find silver skins, skins that are really light in color and silver instead of brown. So we do the silver belly as well.
So on your higher X's, as you go up, like 10X, 20X, the rabbit that is mixed with those, that's going to be your highest quality rabbit?
Exactly, precisely. So we source the skins from domestic breeding, which are very big animals, very big rabbits. And these skins are very good. These are winter skins. The animals are 2 or 3 years old, and so adult animals, and the skin is really, the fur is really thick and really good quality, and that's the quality we use to mix with the beaver.
And on your 100X, is that that's just a whole beaver, or is that belly or back, or how does that work?
It's the whole skin. So that's the beaver we usually produce. It's the full skin, belly and back all mixed. So we just cut the fur from the whole skin, and then we mix it and we purify it, like we degrease it and we clean it and we blow it and so on to get rid of the guard hair and just use the very fine fur for but it's mixed the back and the belly, except the silver belly where we use only the belly, and then we use the back for something else.
Perfect.
Jeff, it was a pleasure to have you here visiting. We visited everything from scratch, from the skin. I enjoyed showing you the skin, how we work the skin to guarantee the cleanliness best as possible, how we cut the fur, how we prepare the fur, how we do the keratin, the famous keratin, and then how we...
No mercury.
No mercury, of course, since 1945. And how we build the hats, at the forming machine, then the felting, the dyeing, the blocking, everything, shellac, and all those operations. It was a pleasure to discuss in today and yesterday. So it was a long way from the beginning till the end, but I enjoyed discussing and learning also from you, and it was great. It was a great pleasure having you here at Cortadoria and at FEPSA, showing you how we produce the fur and make the best felt hats possible for you, and we are very proud to supply you, Jeff, really.
Thank you
very
so much for having me.
Thank
Obrigado.
you very much. All right.
So, like I explained before, and then he explains, you know, the highest quality hat body that he makes is 100X, which is 100%. Most companies will take that hat and put that 500X label on that hat. And that's what I was talking about before. Now, that 100X that he makes is 100% beaver, and it's all the beaver. It's belly, it's back, it's everything. And so the hat that you most commonly see labeled as a 500X is that body.
So if a 500X that you see in a store is really this 100X body from FEPSA, what in the hell is a 100X that you find in a store today?
So the 100X that you see in the stores today, and that's just another confusing part of that, because some companies actually use Ricardo's 100X for their 100X. Some companies use Ricardo's 100X for 500X. So it's really confusing because some companies just don't believe in the 200X. They don't believe in the 500X. And so they're sticking with that 100X.
What's your end goal here? What do the people watching need to take away from this?
So what I hope you take from this is, or really the reason why I'm saying this is because for a long time, when I worked for the big production company, people would ask us, you know, what's your percentage? You know, what's your percentage of beaver in the hat? And what we told everybody was, you know, that's proprietary information. And I was totally fine with that because, you know, like Coke's not going to give you their recipe. You're not going to know what all the herbs and spices are. And I'm totally fine with that. And then just lately, you hear a lot of hat makers saying, oh, okay, well, this hat has this percentage in it. And most commonly, that statement is false.
Most commonly, that statement is false.
And I know it to be false. And so it came to, you know, with social media and just everything gets bigger and more talked about way more rapidly than it did before. And so now it's just on the forefront of almost every conversation we have when people come in the store, beaver content. And with what is being said today, it is making it even more confusing to the end consumer. So what I want to do is put some clarification on that. And after you watch this, you might have more questions than answers. But what I'm trying to expose, the hat industry and what you think an X is not what you think it is. And let me tell you something, after this comes out, hat companies do not want me to tell you what I'm telling you. So if something happens to me, I can tell you this, nobody loves Jeff Biggars more than Jeff Biggars. So if some death happens or something like that, just know it was somebody else. It wasn't me.